Hi guys, it's Mishel, Deception Bytes, and I am back to you with more Q. Today is May 18th, and it is 2:26 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to bring you the post from yesterday, and that will bring us up to date to today because Q, as of this time anyway, has not posted on May 18th. So this is going to bring us completely up to date. And it's a big, there's a lot to go over and a lot of really interesting things. And I think with everything that's happening now, anyone that is saying that Q is not real or whatever is way out to lunch. So let's get right into it. This is May 17th, and Q posted a previous post from, let me see, this was April 9th. So this post is April 9th, and he's posting it to us to remind us to trust Sessions, trust Ray, trust Kansas, trust Horowitz, trust Huber. Q. So, and I think if I'm not mistaken, Kansas was Pompeo. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not going to take the time to go back now, but I really believe that that was Pompeo because he was originally from Kansas, and that was what his nickname was, so to speak. Trump likes to have nicknames. Certainly his nicknames for the elite are not so kind, but anyway. So, let me see. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Now, this is yesterday as well, as are all of these. And here, Q posted a post from April the 2nd. And this one is it's a link to Breitbart, where Turley Sessions using Utah federal prosecutor, much better, Trump, it's much better for Trump than a second special counsel. We have looked at that actually more than a couple times, so I'm not going to go out to that now. Why was this made public? John Huber appointed by Sessions, removed by, reappointed by, why the reboot? Think logically, history books, Q. Now, Q posts this, and it says the hard part for us is having to wait for the public to know what we've known for a very long time. There is no bigger threat to them than the public being awake and thinking for themselves. Why are we here? Q. Well, and I think he's saying, why are we here on 8chan, dropping these breadcrumbs? Why are we even bothering to do that? And he's just answered his own question by saying there's no bigger threat to them than the public being awake or thinking for themselves. That's what Q is making us do. He is providing I guess the clues and leading us by those clues and by asking us questions to the answers so that we can begin to think for ourselves and not just take everything that the mainstream media shoves down our throats, because that is what the public generally does. I don't believe that you would be listening to this channel if that applied to you, so you can discount that as being you right away. But he's saying the hard part for us is having to wait for the public, and I think he means there the public at large, because they're just starting to become aware of this stuff. Now, of course, there's a lot of people still in denial and still clinging to those ridiculous narratives put out by the mainstream media, but for the most part, people are starting to wake up. Now, the next post, let me go way up here because I've inserted in between the two posts a lot of my own information or information that I have found. Now, this is the next post by Q, and I love it because he just inserts this little clip out of a tweet by Mike Pompeo, and Mike Pompeo says, currently scrolling through Rolling Stone's lyrics to name our next spying op. Any requests? Now, in case you're not already aware, and you probably are, the code name for the operation to spy on Trump was named after a Rolling Stones song called Crossfire Hurricane. So Mike Pompeo, a little tongue-in-cheek here, was, trying to needle the deep state cabal. That's exactly what he was doing. He just a little tongue-in-cheek there, and I like it. He's obviously got a good sense of humor, and I think that's awesome. Now, let's go to this link. And then Q said, well, actually, was this Q or was this an Anon that posted this? No, forgive me. This was an Anon that posted this, found this clip from Mike Pompeo on his Twitter account and just pasted it in. And then below he said, this has probably already been posted. Thought it was funny. I think it's funny too, actually. Now, let's go out to a link here. FBI named Trump Russia investigation after Rolling Stones lyrics. And if you'll remember, I always wondered why at the end of the meetings that Trump would play a Rolling Stones song. You don't always get what you wanted, but if you're something I can't even remember. I was never a Rolling Stones fan. You get what you need. It's a very, very famous song, and you know it to hear it, obviously, and you probably recall him playing that as well. And I always thought, that's interesting that he would play that. Just, I don't know if he knew about this or not, but it's interesting. So the secret investigation was called Crossfire Hurricane. This poor man, it's rumored that he signed a deal with the devil, and he must have, because he didn't make it on his looks. But anyway, and that's really not very nice of me, but I don't know. Today, May 16th, the New York Times reports that 100 days prior to the 2016 U.S. presidential election, the FBI began a secret investigation into the Donald Trump campaign's ties to Russia. The investigation was given a code name, Crossfire Hurricane, named after a lyric from the Rolling Stones' 1968 single, Jumpin' Jack Flash. Mick Jagger opens the song, I was born in a crossfire hurricane, and I howled at the morning driving rain. Crossfire Hurricane was also the title of a 2012 HBO documentary on the Stones. If I'm not mistaken as well, I read somewhere, and now I can't find it again, that the operation to kill JFK was called Crossfire. So, coincidence? Probably not. But as the Times notes, it is unclear who decided to call the investigation Crossfire Hurricane. Read more about the FBI's investigation at the New York Times. Well, I don't think that we need to do that, but it's interesting. So, oops, hang on. I got so much stuff open, it's ridiculous. Okay. So, coming down from that, before I go to the next Q post, I did put in some extra information just to kind of fluff out our knowledge, which is a kind of a strange way to put it, but you know what I mean. Okay, Crossfire Hurricane was the code name for Brennan and Comey's operation in London. Strzok, Steele, Downer, Papadopoulos, Miss Fudd, Halper, and Page meetings were all based in London. Who was the CIA London station chief in 2016? Gina Haspel. And of course, she has just been confirmed as the leader of the CIA. So, not sure what side she's on. I guess I have a hard time believing that Trump would put her in power if she were a black hat, but hey, I don't know. Washington. Within hours of opening an investigation into the Trump campaign's ties to Russia in the summer of 2016, the FBI dispatched a pair of agents to London on a mission so secretive that all but a handful of officials were kept in the dark. Their assignment, which has not been previously reported, was to meet the Australian ambassador who had evidence that one of Donald J. Trump's advisors knew in advance about Russian election meddling. After tense deliberations between Washington and Canberra, a top Australian officials broke with diplomatic protocol and allowed the ambassador, Alexander Downer, to sit for an FBI interview to describe his meeting with the campaign advisor, George Papadopoulos. The agents summarized their highly unusual interview and sent word to Washington on August 2nd, 2016, 2 days after the investigation was opened. Their report helped provide the foundation for a case that a year ago, Thursday, became the special counsel investigation. But at the time, a small group of FBI officials knew it by its codename Crossfire Hurricane. And here is a tweet by Kay Faith. The FBI called their illegal Trump investigation Crossfire Hurricane after the Rolling Stones lyrics. At the end of almost every rally, Trump played the Rolling Stones' "You Can't Always Get What You Want." Coincidence or master trolling? I'd like to believe it was master trolling, but maybe that's wishful thinking. And here again is, I believe I lifted this from the Great Awakenings board, if I'm not mistaken, but it may have come from Twitter as well. Sometimes I forget, and I'm going to have to start writing on here where I've gotten this stuff from, because I do want to give, kudos where kudos should go, and to whom it should go. Okay, breaking. James, gosh, I'm having trouble today. James Comey sent Peter Strzok to London 90 days before the election to dig up dirt on President Trump. Mission codename was Crossfire Hurricane. Comey then lied about it to Congress and DOJ. And that's according to the New York Times. And then this is from an anonymous. Why is Peter Strzok in London for Comey in Operation Hurricane? And Q responds to this post by saying SIS Q. I'm not sure what SIS means, and I'll probably get a I'm trying to think now quickly because it should come to me because it looks very familiar, and I'll probably get a million answers because I appreciate you guys when I ask for something, like I asked for what that skull meant, and as soon as somebody answered, I remembered that I had heard that's what it was. And several responded, but I think you did go ahead and listen to my advice of seeing if anyone else had posted it, because you guys are just always so helpful that way, and I appreciate it. So if someone could put in the comments what SIS is, because I know, it's just not coming to me right now. But I'm not going to use the excuse that I'm tired, because that's no excuse. So anyway, but please do, again, make sure that nobody else, or, that 100 other people haven't posted the same thing, because people are very, very helpful that way. All right. So, and then it goes down to this, U.S. history, ABCs. I know this is very hard to see, and it's very blurry. FBI, CIA, did the covert counterintelligence branch of the FBI end, or will it expand into a new agency? Double meanings exist. SIS is good. UK, US, US, UK, Q. I don't remember. That was from, That was from, the 16th. I don't even remember that post. That's awful. The New York Times article today only reinforces the coup d'etat initiated well before the 2016 election against Trump, just in case he might win. Crossfire Hurricane. So it's just a little additional information there. And we can go on to the next, because I think we've beaten Crossfire Hurricane to death. So let's go up to the next post. And here we've got Q posting. The hard part for us is having to wait, and he's referring to his own post earlier. The hard part for us is having to wait for the public to know what we've known for a very long time. There is no bigger threat to them than the public being awake and thinking for themselves. Why are we here? Q. Now, Q is here. He's responding to this very same post, and here he's responding to this post. And he says, he, she, they says, what is the common theme when bad news is about to break against them? Them meaning the cabal, the deep state, the elite. Well, as we know, that's when false flags tend to occur. Interesting that we have a school shooting today. Not saying that's a false flag. I don't know. I have not heard enough about it yet to be able to determine what happened. But it's just, I think we should, prepare maybe for that possibility that it was. And again, I'm not saying that it was. I have no information on that whatsoever. But Q is saying to us here, what do they do when bad news is about to break? Well, they want to divert your attention, right? What better way to divert your attention with some big breaking either scandal or false flag, right? Absolutely. So Q says, stay vigilant. So he's obviously thinking that there may be a false flag as well, because he says stay vigilant. And I like to stay safe. It's hard these days to stay safe because it could happen at any time and at anywhere to anyone. But we do need to have our eyes and ears open all the time, and don't think that because you live in middle America that you're safe, or in rural America that you're safe, because I don't think really anymore any of us are safe anywhere. We have to be awake and we have to be prepared. So now Q is here referring to this that we just looked at. What is a common theme when bad news is about to break against them? Stay vigilant, Q, which means be on the lookout for false flag events. And Q says, God bless the United States of America, D5. Now remember, D5 is it would be the most dangerous classification of avalanche there is. They have an avalanche classification, just as they have hurricane classification. A D5 is the most destructive. So let's go and take a look at the article that's going to cause this avalanche. Inspector General will declare FBI, DOJ broke law in Clinton email probe. Well, you and I already knew that, right? We who have been following Q already knew this all along. This is not breaking news to us at all. A new report suggests an imminent Inspector General report may rule the FBI and Justice Department officials broke the law in their handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation. Investigative reporter Paul Sperry said Thursday that Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz has found reasonable grounds for believing there has been a violation of federal criminal law in the FBI DOJ's handling of the Clinton investigations, adding that the top watchdog official has, quote, referred his findings of potential criminal misconduct to Huber for possible criminal prosecution, end quote. Good news, isn't it? In response to growing calls for a second special counsel to probe the Clinton email probe, along with FISA abuses that took place during the 2016 election, Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced in March the appointment of Utah's top federal prosecutor, John Huber, to probe potential wrongdoing. It was revealed this week that the Inspector General's highly anticipated report was submitted for review. Those invited to review the report were told they would have to sign non-disclosure agreements in order to read it. People familiar with the matter said they are expected to have a few days to craft a response to any criticism in the report, which will then be incorporated in the final version to be released in the coming weeks, the Wall Street Journal reported. Multiple reports suggest the report will be made public by the end of May. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty stoked about that. I think that is extremely good news. So, let's go back. You probably hear that background noise, I am in a flight path here, and my window is open because it's warm outside, and my air conditioner is extremely loud, so you would not be able to hear me very well if I turned it on. So I have the window open. It's the lesser of two evils, or as my mother says, it's the lesser of two weevils. Okay, that I had, I threw that in there for free. Okay, now this post that we just looked at by Q with the Breitbart article about the Inspector General report is being referred to by Q in this post down below. And let's read it. What had to happen first? Think logically. Think DOJ and FBI. Think cleaning. Number 64. Now, number 64 is the post that's listing all the people that are fired. We're going to take a look at that in a second. And he said, puzzle coming together. It is for me. I don't know about you. I hope so, because I've tried to make these so that they're as understandable as possible. I know some of you, listen to several people and have, a really good handle on all this. So anyway, we have reached our cruising altitude of 40,000 feet long ago. And remember when he used to talk about the 40,000 foot view, which is basically, when you're on the ground, you really can't see everything. But when you're in the air at 40,000 feet, you can see a long way off. And that's the big picture. And that's the view that he wants us to have. He doesn't want us to have that ground view, or the view when you're just slightly off the ground. When you just first take off from the airport, and the people, you can still see the people walking around, and you can see the cars going by, and you can see people in the cars, and you can't see very far in the distance. But then when you get up higher, you can see, sometimes you can see, across states, across, you have a very big picture view. So I heard that explained to me one time, as well as, because I never understood how God was outside of time, how he knew the end from the beginning. And someone explained it to me as, say you're on a roof and you're watching the Macy's parade, and you're watching, say you're watching from the audience, and you watch, the band go by, and you watch a float go by, and then you watch the next float go by, and then you watch some horses go by, and, you're seeing all these things go by one by one. But if you're on the roof, you can see the end of the parade, and you can see the beginning of the parade. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe that's for someone, or maybe not. I don't know. Let's continue. Now, I grabbed this from Praying Medic, his who's a very good source of information, I might add. His Twitter account, I always want to call it Facebook, and I don't know, because I don't know why, because I really hate Facebook. I hardly ever go there anymore. And Anon asked QAnon for verification that this was the number 64 he referred to. This is post number 64. Okay. And then Q responds in the affirmative that it is. So we're going to go look at this post that is 64, is this one, and that's the one that names all the firings and so forth. Like, let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys, because I know somebody's going to say, make it bigger. Let it be bigger. And it was. All right, James Baker, fired, reported today, resigned, removed January, fired 4/21. Lisa Page, fired, reported today, resigned, false. Testimony received, tracking yes, added. Mike Cortan, FBI, Assistant Director for Public Affairs, fired, cooperating under resigned title. Josh Campbell, Special Assistant to James Comey, fired. DOJ, okay, so this was the FBI, this is the DOJ down here. David Loftman, Chief of the Justice Department's Counterintelligence and Export Control Section, National Security, Hillary Rodham Clinton email investigation, fired/forced. So he was forced out. John Carlin, Assistant Attorney General, Head of DOJ's National Security Division, fired. Sally Yates, fired. Mary McCord, fired. Bruce Orr, demoted 2 times, cooperating witness, power removed. Rachel Brand, fired by force. Cross against House, Senate resignations, final term announcements, plus CEO departures. Conspiracy, fake news, the swamp is being drained. Trust the plan, justice, Q. So down here when he was talking about right here, this was posted May 17th, and he said, what had to happen first? Think logically. Think DOJ and FBI. Think cleaning. They had to clean house, and cleaning house means bye-bye, don't let the door hit you on the behind. And 64, so this is post number 64, where he's listing the people that are out. Puzzle coming together? We've reached our cruising altitude of 40,000 feet long ago. As we prepare to land, please fasten your seatbelt and make sure your seat back and folding trays are in their upright position. Q. And I'm sure probably all of you have flown, but if you haven't, that is what they always say. As you're preparing to land, put your seat back up straight and put your tray up. And pass any garbage to the stewardess usually, although flight attendants, they don't call them stewardess anymore. All right. Probably now, because there's as many male flight attendants as there are female. Now, the next post is this, and it's simply a picture. Now, it's interesting because the file name is PS. Now, I would think that stands for, and it was taken in London, so I would think that would stand for Peter Strzok. This woman taking the picture of him looks suspiciously like Lisa Page from behind to me, but again, can't be sure. But I don't know what is between his legs there. It is the weirdest thing. He's holding something between his legs, and he's got like a little teddy bear or something in his hand that, I don't know, looks to me like a little elephant, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. And then the one below is, this is definitely London with the double-decker buses. I love those things. And the first file name is fserv London PS1, and then fserv London PS2. So this is 2. The one we looked at is 1. So fserv, does that stand for Field Survey? London, Peter Strzok, 1 and 2? I don't know. I don't see anyone here that looks like Peter Strzok, unless I'm missing something. And I could be. I could very well be. Because there could be people up here. I don't know. I mean, there are people up there, but it's very hard for me to tell in this picture. It's a blurry picture. But it's definitely in London, and remember, we've just been told that Strzok was in London and Page. So, yeah, I would love to know what he is holding between his legs. It's weird. Anyway, let's go on to the next one. And here is the next picture that Q posts yesterday, and this is obviously Trafalgar Square, and we know that because it says Trafalgar Square. It's very blurry. I'm sorry. I could make it as huge as a billboard and it would just get blurrier. So that is Trafalgar Square. Now let's go up to the next one. Q says, note the jackets. Now that's the one that we looked at with the 2 people, the PS1 and PS2. Q says, note the jackets, time of year. Well, yeah, they do have on jackets that I think would be conducive to fall. I don't know exactly the weather in London, and maybe somebody that lives there or who is very familiar can fill us in on this. This is a jacket that here in Canada we would wear in the spring or maybe the fall in October. Certainly not the winter, because you have to bundle up like the abominable snowman here, or you will freeze to death. Now, I don't know how London compares temperature-wise. I know they do get snow. I know they have seasons, so I'm not sure. But maybe somebody that lives there or has lived there or visits there frequently can fill us in on that. But obviously, I would not say this is winter per se, but it's definitely a colder time of year. But maybe they have mild winters over there, so it could be winter. I don't know. Again, somebody will need to inform us that has more information than I do. Okay, and then up here, it's interesting. Q posts this picture of an airplane, and the airplane is they're shrink-wrapped pallets of what looks to be some sort of technical equipment, and it says Air China on there, and the file name is X. And below it, Q has said, "We are everywhere, Anon." Q. Now, I think this is in response to something another Anon posted. Just 1 second here. Let me verify that. I don't want us getting confused. Actually, I don't want me getting confused. You're probably like, yeah, we get it. Okay, yeah. Here is a post by an Anon, and it says, "A theory?" Oh gosh, it's the middle of the day and I just yawned, and I do apologize. I'm getting old. I must be getting old and need an afternoon nap or something. I don't know. Okay, a theory? Those pallets were full of smartphones to be distributed members, i.e. Hillary, Bill, Hussein, Bremer, etc. These were special phones which the cabal thought they could not be tracked or monitored. The cabal needed a new way to communicate after Q exposed their Gmail draft and the game forum methods. Hillary was in New Zealand, Five Eyes, not only to raise funds, if that is the true story, but to test out the phones. Under directions of Trump, New Zealand told Hillary that the phones were good. The cabal workers with China ZTE for these special phones. That is why ZTE was in the news lately. Trump drew attention to them to send the cabal a message that he was on to them. The pictures in London show the cabal meeting up after communicating with their secret phones. Just a theory. Now, I don't know. I don't particularly, I don't subscribe to this. I don't particularly believe that. Now, I could be wrong, but I just don't. I do think it touches on many things that are true here, but then wanders into speculation a bit. So Q responds by posting this picture. And this is the, sorry, my phone was vibrating and I had to see who was calling in case it was an emergency. Okay, this is Air China and the picture that we just discussed here. And down below, Q says, "We are everywhere, Anon." Q. So I do think that this Anon hit on some really good stuff. I do think that there are two sets of phones. I think that there are the phones that go to everyone, and then there are the phones that are, for the cabal. So let's, and this is going to make more sense in a minute, okay? All right, let's go up to the next picture now. This is Q, and he's posting two pictures of shrink wrapped. Well, one's shrink wrapped, one is not. And it says class 1 and class 2. So, did he say anything underneath? No. I'm going to go up and finish these pictures before coming back down and explaining, okay? Because otherwise it's not going to make too much sense. Okay. Here's the picture, and Q with the Air China plane, and Q says, "We are everywhere, Anon." Q. And then Q posts this and this. And let me see. Okay. This is a picture of shrink-wrapped pallets about to be loaded or after being unloaded onto or from an Air China plane. So those pallets are either being loaded onto the plane or coming off the plane. And it's hard to tell actually in that picture because we don't have any more information. And this is, okay, then that picture was named, which one was named? Foxconn. Not this one, I think. Sorry, trying to ascertain which picture is which here. No, that's not it. I'm going to have to go back out to the board itself because I don't want us getting confused here. Okay, now, for some reason, I am missing these two, and that's why it doesn't make sense. I thought I had pasted them, but it looks like I deleted them. This is the post we just looked at, okay, with class 1 and class 2. Then we've got two pictures that are taken in China, and I'll make them as big as I can, but again, the pictures aren't that big. And this is a picture of a building, and it says Foxconn ZZ. Okay, now let's go back to the board. Not there, here. And we'll look at this one. Did I just hit on this one or this one? They're pretty much the same thing. I think it's the same thing. Okay, and then let's go out because these pictures are saying file not found now, so I want to. This is called Foxconn ZZ, so pay attention to that. This one, Foxconn ZZ, and the next picture is called X10. Well, remember that iPhone 10 is called iPhone X, but so X10, this is a reference as far as I'm concerned to the iPhone, and we'll see that why that makes sense in just a minute. I'm going to go back out to the research board here to look at this post in its natural environment. It's like observing animals in their natural environment. Shh, we're hunting. Okay, and so there's the picture. This is the post as it appeared on the board. And there's Foxconn ZZ is the name of the file, .png, and this is x10.png, and let's take a look at this. Come on, be bigger. All right. And this is some sort of a warehouse and a box, shrink wrapped on the top, not on the bottom, not on the top. And Chinese, this is obviously a Chinese warehouse, or one would assume because of the Chinese workers. Of course, if you are in Western Canada, you know, a lot of the factories look that way because we have a massive Chinese population. But I do believe that this is a Chinese in actual China because it fits with everything else. So let's go back to my board or my my posts here where I've copied them. And so Foxconn ZZ and X10 file names. Foxconn ZZ is the company making iPhones in China. iPhone 10 is called iPhone X, so X10. So now we see the connection between the pictures, right? Then below, classification 1, classification 2, or classified 1, classified 2. And let's look at this link because it's going to explain it. New York Times details Foxconn's Zhengzhou facility that manufactures iPhones on a massive scale. Most of the iPhone models Apple develops, markets, and sells are being assembled by Foxconn, the world's leading contract manufacturer. In a new investigative piece, the New York Times newspaper delves into the inner workings of Foxconn's iPhone manufacturing plant in Zhengzhou, a city of 6 million people in an impoverished region of China. Fun fact, the world's biggest iPhone factory, referred to as iPhone City by the locals, is capable of churning out 500,000 iPhones per day at peak. Author David Barboza was able to uncover confidential government records and had to conduct a bunch of interviews with logistic handlers, truck drivers, factory workers, tax specialists, and executives from Apple and Foxconn to paint an accurate picture of the massive scale of Apple's operation in China. For starters, iPhone City is responsible for half the world's iPhone output. An excerpt from the report. A crushing workforce begins arriving for the early shift at 6:30 a.m. They travel by foot, by bus, by motor scooter, and even by pedicab. They file steadily into dozens of factory sites spread out across 2.2 square miles. At the peak, some 350,000 workers assemble, test, and package iPhones, up to 350 a minute. The government pays recruiters a subsidy for every worker they hire. Mr. Liu said if the demand is high, they will pay more. He said if the demand is low, then the payment will be low too. It's no secret that Foxconn built the Zhengzhou facility with billions in perks and a hidden bounty of benefit tax breaks and subsidiaries by the Zhengzhou government. Decades ago, China created special economic zones that offer tax breaks to multinationals and exempt them from costly and cumbersome rules. Beijing has never disclosed the total value of benefits and subsidies for the Zhengzhou operation. Apple said it was not a party to Foxconn's negotiations. What we do know is that Zhengzhou did pledge to spend more than $10 billion to vastly expand an airport just a few miles from the iPhone factory to expedite Apple's global shipments. You can see a model of that airport on the image below. And this is the model. Some of the perks supplied to Foxconn by the Zhengzhou government include built and partly financed the construction of a huge manufacturing complex at a cost of $600 million, spent about $1 billion to build housing that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of workers, provides a discount that reduces the cost of power by 5% annually, built infrastructure including power generators and 24-kilometer pipeline, eliminated corporate taxes and value-added taxes for 5 years, then half the usual rate for the next 5 years, granted a $250 million loan from the municipal treasury, helps recruit and train workers as well as paying subsidiaries for new hires, lowered the amount of social insurance and other payments by up to $100 million a year, offers bonuses tied to the growth of exports, pays out a subsidy to help defray the cost of shipping goods. In the mid-1980s, Apple used to manufacture Macs in its own factories in Texas and California. Following Jobs' return at Apple's helm in the late 1990s, Apple's partnered with Foxconn and moved all production overseas. Foxconn's heft and expertise has allowed Apple to build the original iPod and other products on a huge scale that would not have been possible if the firm hadn't outsourced production to China. Ahead of the original iPhone launch, Foxconn considered offers by officials from various cities before eventually choosing Zhengzhou for its huge manufacturing plant. The city even provided a $250 million loan to Foxconn with government subsidies totaling $56 million in the facility's first 2 years of iPhone manufacturing. Jeff Williams, Apple's current chief operating officer, who was Tim Cook's right-hand man back then, was part of the early discussions about setting up a factory. "I was impressed," Williams told the paper. "They were very focused." In 2014, the Zhengzhou facility had 94 production lines for iPhone 6 and iPhone 5s. Foxconn's ability to produce Apple gadgets on a truly massive scale was first tested with the introduction of the original iPod music player, and according to the following illustrative excerpt from the investigative piece. When Apple's sales took off after the introduction of the iPod in 2001, Foxconn had the heft and expertise to meet the demand that accompanied each hit product. Foxconn's factory could quickly produce prototypes, increase production, and during peak periods hire hundreds of thousands of workers. Foxconn founder Terry Gao provided political clout, spending years building the relationships with the Chinese officials and lobbying for subsidies, cheap land, workers, and infrastructure for his firm's facilities. So, yeah. Interesting. So let's go back. So obviously, Q is highlighting this to us, and he's also highlighting the fact that there are two different types of phones, I would believe. I believe that's what Q is doing here. I may be wrong, and if I am wrong, I will come back and I will tell you what I've found, because I don't want disinformation out there, and I certainly don't want it to be coming from me. So let's go on to the next picture that Q posted. And it is this. And that happens to be an aerial view of Las Vegas. And it's taken from an airplane. And the reason we can tell it's taken from an airplane is we can see this outline here of the jet engine. So, and the name of the file is LV remove. So what is being removed from Las Vegas? Is someone being spirited to safety? Is this in relation to Harvest Fest shooting? I would assume so, even though beneath we're talking about cell phones and flying and so forth. I don't think that's related to this, but hey, I could be wrong. And we know that this is Las Vegas because I was able to because of this water right here, I used that as a reference point, and I was able to find another aerial sort of view of that same water in Las Vegas. And this was a Las Vegas aerial view from the Eiffel Tower replica at the Paris Hotel. So that is the water as reference. So we know that this is a picture of the Las Vegas Strip. And let's go on to the next. We're getting there. Now, what this is, I believe, is a picture of Shuttle Endeavour, California Science, at the California Science Center, and I put a question mark here because I don't know for sure. But the file name is X2. Now, the United States Congress approved the reconstruction of Endeavour in 1987 to replace Challenger, which was lost in 1986. It was flown by a 747 from California to the Kennedy Space Center. So, what exactly this is referring to and why, we have yet to find out. And maybe there's other anons out there that have found out and have answers, but I'm not aware of it yet. So I'll keep looking to find out how this is all related. If you guys have any ideas, put it in the comments below, because as I've said many, many times, it takes all of us. So now, this is a very interesting one. Q posted this picture. It's a picture of an owl. Now, we all know, at least we should know by now, that the owl is indicative, symbolic of the god, small g, Moloch. Moloch was a Canaanite god who the Canaanites sacrificed their children to. And it's really, a god that requires the sacrifice of children. And it says guardian of the Pope, personal, Q. Now, interesting. We're going to go up and look at a little bit. The owl is symbolic of the god Moloch, yeah. And that was me that I put in there. And I just put this tweet because I thought, there was something else about the Pope recently. Oh, yeah, I remember. Here it is. And it was this anon on April 3rd, 2018, said P equals Pope. And Q responds and says, Pope will be having a terrible May. Those who backed him will be pushed into the light. Dark to light. Truth. Q. And I remember thinking that at the time. What's going to happen to the Pope in May? Pope will be having a terrible May. Well, let's have a look. Well, here, Chilean bishops offer mass resignation to Pope over abuse scandal. Oh my. And in an unprecedented move, 34 Chilean bishops said on Friday they had offered to resign en masse after attending a crisis meeting this week with Pope Francis about the cover-up of the sexual abuse in their country. Well. Let's go take a look at this link. And while we're doing that, I'm going to have a drink. Best iced tea in the world. Okay. All of Chile's 34 bishops resign over a sex abuse and cover-up scandal after crisis meeting with the Pope. Pope Francis has accused Chile's bishop of destroying evidence of sex crimes. Francis said the entire Chilean church hierarchy was collectively responsible. In a leaked 2,300-page report, the Pope blasted the entire Chilean church hierarchy for their grave defects in handling abuse cases. All 34 Chilean bishops have now offered to resign following the crisis meeting. All 34, okay. The bishops also apologized to Chile, the victims of abuse, and the Pope for the scandal as they released an extraordinary joint statement. It was not immediately clear if the Pope who slammed had accepted their resignation. That is very ill written. Okay, anyway, so that's that. And it's interesting. The bishops announced at the end of an emergency summit with Pope Francis that all 31 active bishops and 3 retired ones in Rome had signed a document offering to resign and putting their fate in the hands of the Pope. Francis can accept the resignations one by one, reject them, or delay a decision. It marked the first known time in history that an entire national bishops' conference had offered to resign en masse over scandal and laid bare the devastation that the abuse crisis had caused the Catholic Church in Chile and beyond. So I'm not going to get into all that because it's in the news currently and can easily be looked up. So let's get out of there and go back here. And let's go to this link because Pope Francis is hinting that he may retire. Now, I've never heard of a pope retiring, but hey, in this day and age, I guess anything's possible. Pope Francis hints he may retire. Pope Francis says he's thought about when it might be time to take leave of his flock. Francis made the comment during the morning homily Tuesday. The Vatican didn't release the full text. Francis was reflecting on St. Paul, discerning when to leave his flock in the care of others, a decision Francis said all bishops must make. He said, "When I read this, I think about myself, because I'm a bishop and I'll have to take my leave." Francis has said retired Pope Benedict, I guess that would be the 16th, opened a door to future popes by resigning. While the 81-year-old pope has said he didn't envisage a long papacy, he hadn't said explicitly if he'd retire. Francis may have also been referring to Chilean bishops implicated in a sex abuse cover-up scandal. So there you go. And of course, we can't say what he was referring to exactly because we're not the Pope. And wouldn't want to be. Okay, now let's go up a little bit. So the Pope is going to have a bad May. We already know this, and we'll keep our eyes and ears open to see what else is going to happen in May. And I grabbed this little thing about Moloch, Of course, Moloch is very much ingrained into, or owl worship is very much ingrained into our society. Here's a picture of an owl in, I think that's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And there's a picture of owl on our paper money. There is an owl actually in the street layout of Washington. Here's an owl on, I'm not sure who this is. I don't follow, that type of music. So, and here's an owl actually from the hieroglyphics and Egypt. This is actually what the god Moloch looks like, and he is known as the owl god. Here is the street layout in Washington that's shaped as an owl. And again, here's the owl in Snow White, and lots of owl references, which we know Walt Disney was part of the occult. Now, I also grabbed this because I just thought it would be fun. I really like this person educating liberals and follow them on Twitter. President Trump just donated his first quarter salary to the Department of Veterans Affairs. He does things like this because he genuinely cares about our country. The last time Obama donated anything, Iran got a plane full of cash. Bazinga. Now, for some reason, I did not copy the last post, so I better go back over here and grab it for you so that you will see the very last post that was made on May 17th. We're now into May 18th. It's 3:22 Eastern Standard Time, and Q has not posted yet. But so this is the last message, and this was after this succession of pictures were posted, and Q posted messages sent. End. Q. So who was he sending these messages to? I don't think, primarily it was us. I think primarily this message was to go to members of the deep state, the cabal, the elite, and I think they know who they are. That's my theory. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So that's what I think. Primarily, these were not meant for us. It's fun to figure them out. It's fun to see what they mean. It's fun to possibly infer meaning into them. But ultimately, I think this was a sent message. And Q says end. Period. Q. So that's it for May 17th. And I've enjoyed bringing it to you. If you want to be subscribed, make sure you subscribe and stay subscribed because they do drop subscribers. And hit that little bell button. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate your comments. And I will be bringing you more Q as he posts. Talk to you later. Stay safe.